Am I the only one that didn't know how the devices in our homes could quietly turn against us? We fill our lives with smart gadgets, speakers, locks, cameras, believing they make us safer, more connected, and in control. But what if these everyday conveniences are hiding a darker side, quietly eroding our sense of security without us even realizing it? In today's world, technology is woven into the fabric of our daily lives. But what if the very devices designed to make life easier become tools of harm? What if the wounds are invisible, inflicted by technology that's supposed to keep us safe and connected? Tech-enabled abuse is a modern horror. Abusers use smart devices to control, intimidate, and isolate, without ever being in the room. With a few taps on a phone, they can manipulate the environment, making the victim feel powerless and alone. Imagine your front door lock changing its code, trapping you inside or locking you out at the abuser's whim. The place that should be your sanctuary becomes a prison, controlled remotely. Lights flicker at night, not by accident, but as a calculated act of intimidation. The smallest comforts, like turning on a lamp, are stolen, replaced by fear and uncertainty. The abuser becomes a ghost in the machine, creating a constant sense of fear and surveillance. Every movement is watched, every word potentially recorded, making escape feel impossible. Victims are left feeling watched, judged, and powerless in their own homes. The walls that once offered comfort now echo with anxiety and dread. This abuse erodes privacy and autonomy, leaving survivors in a state of high alert. Every sound, every flicker of light becomes a reminder that they are not alone, even when no one else is there. The trauma is real, even if the bruises aren't visible. The emotional scars run deep, shaping how survivors see themselves and the world around them. We must recognize that psychological abuse now includes these unseen tech-driven tactics. It's not only about emotional harm, it's about control, manipulation, and stripping away a person's sense of safety. The fear, anxiety, and sense of entrapment are just as damaging as physical violence. Night after night, survivors lie awake, wondering if they'll ever feel safe again. By shining a light on this hidden epidemic, we can start to understand the unique challenges survivors face. Awareness is the first step toward change, and every story shared brings us closer to solutions. Abusers can also manipulate television programming to affect the psychological balance of their victims. By controlling what appears on the screen, they can bombard the victim with distressing content, furthering their sense of isolation and fear. The TV, once a source of entertainment and relaxation, becomes another tool of torment, making the victim feel trapped in a never-ending cycle of psychological abuse. The Internet of Things promised convenience, but for many, it's become a weapon. Abusers exploit smart devices, locks, speakers, thermostats, to harass and control. A home becomes a stage for psychological torment, orchestrated from a distance. Abusers can lock doors, blast music at night, or manipulate the temperature, all to destabilize and intimidate. Surveillance is constant. Smart cameras and baby monitors track every move. Victims lose privacy, feeling watched and powerless. Abusers often control all device accounts, locking victims out and making them dependent. Disabling devices can escalate the abuse, trapping victims in a digital prison. This technological gatekeeping isolates and disempowers, making escape even harder. Gaslighting, making someone doubt their reality, has always been a devastating form of psychological abuse. But now, in our hyper-connected world, it's taken on a new digital edge that's even harder to escape. Abusers can now reach into every corner of a victim's life, manipulating not just words and memories, but the very technology that surrounds them. They remotely control devices, turning off alarms, changing passwords, or sending strange messages, then deny any involvement, leaving victims confused, anxious, and doubting their own senses. "You're imagining things," the abuser insists, as lights flicker, music blares unexpectedly, or security codes change without warning. Over time, victims start to question their own sanity, exactly as the abuser intends. The world feels unpredictable, and nothing seems trustworthy anymore. The manipulation is invisible. There's no physical evidence, just a growing sense of unreality and self-doubt that eats away at confidence. The abuser becomes the sole arbiter of what's real, isolating the victim further from friends, family, and any outside support. Living in this digital funhouse of mirrors is exhausting. It erodes self-worth, making every day feel like a battle just to trust your own mind. Victims become less likely to seek help, convinced no one will believe them, or that their experiences are just in their head. Abusers may even spread rumors telling others the victim is unstable or paranoid, deepening the isolation and making escape feel impossible. This strategy destroys confidence, undermines self-esteem, and keeps victims trapped in a cycle of doubt and fear. The ultimate goal is total control. By undermining a person's trust in themselves, the abuser gains power over every aspect of their life. Digital gaslighting is a cruel, calculated way to break someone from the inside out, leaving deep emotional scars that can last for years. But recognizing this tactic is the first step to breaking its hold and reclaiming your sense of reality and self-worth. Tech-enabled abuse is nearly invisible. No bruises, no broken furniture, just digital chaos. The harm is real, but it hides behind screens and passwords, making it almost impossible to spot with the naked eye. Unlike physical abuse, there are no obvious signs for others to notice, and the damage is often psychological, leaving victims feeling trapped and alone. Evidence hides in device logs and server data, often beyond the reach of victims and law enforcement. Even when survivors know something is wrong, the technical nature of the abuse means they can't easily access or interpret the proof. Abusers exploit this complexity, using technology to cover their tracks and erase digital footprints. Survivors are dismissed as paranoid or delusional when they report being locked out or spied on. Their stories sound far-fetched, and without clear evidence, it's easy for others to doubt them. This skepticism can be devastating, making victims question their own reality. Friends and authorities struggle to believe stories that sound like science fiction. The idea of someone controlling your devices or tracking your every move remotely seems unbelievable to many, even though it's increasingly common. This disbelief reinforces the abuser's gaslighting, deepening the victim's isolation. When no one believes them, survivors feel even more powerless, and abusers become bolder, knowing they're unlikely to be caught. Gathering proof is a technical nightmare, requiring experts, subpoenas, and resources most survivors don't have. The process is slow, expensive, and emotionally draining, often forcing victims to give up before they ever see justice. The abuser counts on this skepticism and lack of evidence to act with impunity. They know the odds are stacked in their favor, and that the system is not equipped to handle these new forms of abuse. Survivors are left in fear, unable to meet the burden of proof our systems demand. Many feel hopeless, unsure where to turn for help, and afraid that speaking out will only make things worse. The result, a cycle of abuse with no clear path to safety. Without intervention, the pattern repeats and victims remain trapped in a world where their pain is invisible. We must update our understanding and systems to recognize and address this invisible threat. Only then can we offer real protection and hope to those suffering in silence. Survivors who seek help from the legal system often find more frustration. Laws and institutions weren't built for smart homes, leaving gaps abusers exploit. Many police and judges lack training to recognize or investigate tech abuse. Complaints are dismissed as minor or technical, not as real harassment. Legal definitions of stalking and harassment rarely cover remote digital acts. The burden falls on victims to prove complex abuse, often without support. Until laws and training catch up, survivors will keep falling through the cracks. Despite the challenges, a movement is growing to fight tech-enabled abuse. Specialized tech clinics and digital safety resources now help survivors secure devices and accounts. These clinics offer hands-on support, removing spyware, resetting devices, and documenting abuse. Survivors get both technical help and validation, countering the gaslighting they've endured. Legal advocates are pushing to update laws, closing loopholes, and making tech abuse a crime. The goal? Make it easier for survivors to get protection and for prosecutors to act. Tech companies are also being pressured to design safer products. Features like multi-factor authentication, clear access logs, and user controls can prevent abuse. By building safety into devices, companies can help shift the burden away from victims. Together, these efforts offer hope for reclaiming safety in a digital world. The fight against tech-enabled abuse starts with believing survivors. Their stories may sound strange, but the pain is real. Listening with empathy breaks isolation and validates their reality. Institutions must train staff to recognize and respond to tech abuse. Outdated advice to just get offline only deepens isolation. Survivors need tools and resources to safely navigate technology. Tech companies must design with safety in mind, not just convenience. Privacy and security features should be standard, not optional. A safer digital future requires ethical design and corporate responsibility. We must educate ourselves, adapt our laws, and support those who come forward. The threat is invisible, but our response must be loud and clear. Let's stand together to restore the promise of a safe home for everyone.